peeling off them old brick signs. Folks work hard, keep their heads down, trying to hold on to better times. Used to leave your door unlocked at night. Now everybody's got a camera on. Still got faith if we get it right, we can fix what's gone wrong. Ain't about talk, ain't about show. It's about the way we live, the way we know. Let's get back to dirt roads, back to porch lights. Neighbors standing up when it ain't polite. Cold beer, hot true styles up above. A little less noise and a whole lot of love. Red, white, blue ain't a trend we chase. It's sweat on your shirt and calloused hands grace. If we're gonna stand, we don't stand apart. We gotta go.
Well, good evening and welcome into Apex News Above the Noise. I am Kyle Thompson.
And I'm Craig Blanton.
Craig, we have a bunch of big stories to get into tonight, but before we hit any of those, we want to reintroduce our friend Jim Mackinson, retired fire captain out in California, who's just recently in the last couple of years moved over to the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. He's going to talk to us a little bit as a lead-in about these fires that are happening out in Spokane, Washington. We knew that we have him back on. We didn't know it'd be this quick, but right. They have some major problems out in Spokane. Before we get to talking to Jim and what he can tell us about these things, let's talk a little bit about. Let's show one of the videos here about what's actually happening out there.
Okay, you got to see this image here. Look at that wildfire. Burning out so many people. That's our wildfire watch. More than 10,000 acres look just like that in Spokane, Washington. Happening right now, 3 fires burn and there's zero containment. In fact, yesterday, Washington's governor announced federal emergency declaration status that empowers and sends in more federal resources to thousands recovering.
Firefighters have been working around the clock trying to build containment lines around the 3 fires here in the Spokane area. All 3 continue to burn, and they know they have a bit of a race against the clock here. Weather conditions are going to deteriorate on Friday when high temperatures and increasing winds will come back. That raises the fire danger considerably. The focus on today and on Thursday is trying to contain, or at least direct the fire away from homes here in the Spokane area. Tens of thousands of people remain under evacuation orders.
So what we know as of right now, a 37-year-old Spokane, Washington man named Aaron Farinacci was arrested Monday on suspicion of first-degree arson in connection with the Old Trails fire, one of several major wildfires burning in the Spokane area in eastern Washington. That's in the Pacific Northwest. The fire started Saturday, August 1st, destroyed hundreds of structures, estimated of over 700 plus at the time of this writing. It has burned thousands of acres and forced tens of thousands of people to evacuate. A witness reported seeing a nervous-looking man kneeling or bending near dry grass at the apparent ignition point. Smoke appeared shortly afterwards. Farinacci was detained that day nearby, found in possession of waterproof matches and a butane lighter, questioned and released pending further investigation. Investigators later developed probable cause, including matching the witness description, obtained a warrant and arrested him Monday. He is being held on $1 million bond and made a court appearance by video on Tuesday. Authorities have not linked him to the other nearby fires, just a matter of time probably.
Yeah.
He was not released after a recent murder charge related to this incident. He remains in custody on the arson charge. He does have a prior felony conviction in 2010 in Arizona, the Mesa area. He fatally shot his father after an argument. He was initially charged with first-degree premeditated murder and aggravated assault, but pleaded guilty to manslaughter. Served roughly 12 years and was released around 2020. Some reports note he was also scrutinized but not charged in connection with other fire investigations the prior year. What we know at this point is that the folks in Spokane are essentially saying that there is zero containment. And Jim, I'll just lead in with that statement alone. When you hear zero containment, what does that tell you about the seriousness and the ability to fight this fire at this point?
Sure. Good to be back with you guys. Again, I didn't anticipate it being, the next week, but circumstances dictate.
Yep.
I did want to talk a little bit about what containment means, because that term confuses a lot of people. What containment means to us is that fire from where we've dug a fire line, or where the road or where the river is, or whatever is stopping that fire, is out 200-300 feet from that line into the fire. And it just means that we no longer anticipate that the fire is going to grow anymore in that particular area.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that the fire is out, and it just takes a long time, because we're digging up all these roots. We talked last week about how fires could sleep through the entire winter and pop back up again. We want to make sure that there's nothing burning near a house that survived, and then all of a sudden winds come up like they're expecting potentially later this week, blows that ember in, and now we lose that structure. So it's very, very labor intensive. It takes a long time to get good containment on a lot of these fires, especially in an urban interface when there's just so much stuff that we've got to clean up. The fires aren't growing. Well, two of them aren't. The, let's see, Autumn Lane fire, it's still growing. The other two, they haven't grown in a couple of days now. So even though they're not...
Let's talk about that real quick, Jim, because you actually sent me some satellite imagery so that we could see how quickly these actually expanded, so people could see that. I'm going to bring the first one up here on the screen right now. This is, if you want to do your best and try to tell us what we're looking at right here, and then I'll bring up the second one.
Okay, so this was taken about 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. Up there towards the top, you can see the outlines of the states. So in Washington, you can see three little blotches of fire. Those were existing fires going on that morning. This is through infrared, and so it shows up as red. You can also see the smoke plume coming off those three fires. And you can see, if you look around close enough, there's another fire down by the corner of Oregon and Idaho, kind of right in the middle.
Yep.
And there's a few more poking around out there. But it's nice, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. It's nice and cool, no wind. Humidities are probably relatively high. And then let's go to the next one.
Yep. Already you can see,
So-
this is noon. This is
So
12.
this is noon. So yeah, so you can see there's now 4 spots up there in Washington, one right on the border, and they're showing up a little brighter. There's another one at the far end of Idaho and Colorado you can see.
Yep.
So as the day progresses, and we had this cold front, you can see that cloud formation coming across, a dry cold front, that's what pushed the winds 50, 60 miles an hour through Spokane and really fed the fires. Let's go ahead.
And then this is the 2 p.m. one right here. And I think we're just talking about 4 hours later, and all of this, these are not little red dots that you have to go looking for. They are obvious. Not only here,
they're big enough to be seen from space.
Sure.
Yeah, they're big.
And from
so
Oregon
on this
and
one,
Idaho too.
So this one up in Washington, there right near the Idaho border, you can see that one little red spot. That's the beginning of the fires in Spokane. That's the first one that popped off. It started about noon, so this is about 2 hours into it. And then you can see there's more and more little red dots popping up as the wind is beginning to come across, the weather's drying out, fuels are drying out, and fires are getting bigger.
So go ahead, Craig.
No, I was going to say, just to take it straight up to, the law enforcement world, we track child predators, hard. They got a website, you can see where they live, all that stuff. Being that you are a California and a federal firefighter, do they track arsonists and see where they live and kind of talk to them, get them? Are arsonists crazy people?
Well,
do they track them?
I'm sure that they do. I never really got into the investigation side of fires, but I have no doubt that there's files, FBI files and whatever else that tracks known people. True pedophiles, the people that light these fires for their own enjoyment, are really pretty rare. Most of these are just plain stupid. It's someone starting a campfire. We have, like I think we talked about last week, we have a big problem with the homeless population because they have to start fires to cook their food or whatever else, and they don't think/care where they're putting these fires at. They move on and they're unattended, and then they go off to the races.
This is 4 p.m. on Monday.
My goodness.
You can see the difference. I mean, now we're talking 6 hours in. The one up at the Canadian border and the one near Spokane are enormous now. You also see one from in Idaho. This is in the afternoon still. I mean, this is very, very visible though, and getting much bigger. And
Yeah, you can see them popping up all over the countryside there in multiple states. That great big one at the border, that thing grew, I want to say it grew 60,000 acres that one day.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and this is now this is going to be 6 p.m. that night. Obviously darker, but you can now see these large fires as night is coming along here. How big they've gotten just in one day's time.
Yeah, and this is why some of these fires are really not getting a lot of resources, because they really are burning in the middle of nowhere, and there's really no threat to property or lives. Obviously, we're going to flood those zones with resources sooner, but some of these have been burning for a number of days and weeks. And for point of reference, the yellow lights that you see, those are lights in communities.
Correct.
Those are street lights and house lights and whatever else. So it gives you kind of an idea on where some places are at. But it was just a good representation of, because of that wind event, all of these fires kicked up in a big way, and additional fires started.
Now, Jim, let me ask you this. Forest fires and wildfires are not something that in central Kentucky we have to worry about a lot until we need to. I mean, obviously, you look back just a few years ago when Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge had the just amazing, I say amazing in a catastrophic way, fires. Talk to us a little bit about, and I'll bring the graphic up here, about how to prepare and what to do if you are in a position to protect yourself, and what the best thing to do is.
Sure. So what this graphic is, it talks about the things you should do now. I mean, we're coming in to the fall dry season around here. When we do get our fires, we have all the leaf litter on the ground that's dead. And so this is probably your primary fire season. I was back here, Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, a few times fighting fires in the fall. I was at the Pigeon Forge fire also. But we say we want to have a clear space around your house of 100 feet. That doesn't mean down to just dirt. It just means have a nice park-like setting in your yard. Green grass, limb your trees up. Don't have a bunch of yard art all over the place. Don't have flammable things right next to the house.
Is this in Kentucky, or are you talking out west?
This is any wildfire.
Yeah, this is a national program, One Less Spark. Prevention program. We if we have that kind of separation, we as firefighters have a real fighting chance to save your home. And one of the things that a lot of people don't quite understand, and it's really one of the hardest things you have to do as a firefighter, you go into some of these neighborhoods like we saw in Spokane, and if I've got a house that's got a 100-foot clearance and it's nice and clean, and the homeowner's done a lot of work there, and I've got two other houses that haven't, and the fire's going to hit all three of them at the same time, I'm going to put my resources on the house that's pretty well prepared, because I can save that one. The other two, I'm going to triage them out, because I'm not going to be able to save them. As much work as water I throw in it, they're still going to go to the ground, and I may lose other ones. So it plays into our triage process, our picking process on which ones we're going to be able to make a stand on, and which ones we can't.
Jim, when you talk about in any situation, whether it's a house fire, a wildfire, things of that nature, it also, talks in here about getting set and being prepared to grab what you need to grab. Reiterate to people, you were a firefighter, and you dealt with obviously wildfires, but you also dealt with, we talked before we went on the air, you dealt with some very historic, urban type fires. What do you tell people when you used to see the commercials, even when we were kids, all three of us, have a plan, be sure to have a plan. And we all remember that. But how important is it for families to have an exit plan when it comes to fires? We've all seen those videos of how quickly fires can ravage a home, especially with new wiring and things of that nature. What is the best plan for a family when you're dealing with preparing for a fire?
So for in your house, smoke detectors, lots of smoke detectors.
with the
And when-
batteries replaced and up to date.
Yeah, well, anymore, the new ones, the battery's good for 10 years. You can't even
Correct.
replace the battery, and you just get a new smoke detector for $20 or whatever they are. But also understand, if that smoke detector goes off, that's not the time to go wander around the house and try and see what's going on. It's time for everybody to get outside the house, call 911. And then if you still don't see anything, go in and see what's happening. But things burn so quickly in houses anymore because they're nothing but plastic, and they just throw off tons of heat. And burn very quickly, and then tons, of course, of very toxic smoke. Most people that die in a house fire die from inhalation of all those toxic smokes. They don't burn to death, but it happens very, very quickly.
Jim, just to reiterate, the reason, again, thank you for coming on here and talking to us about these wildfires. What is the environmental impact of a wildfire like this? I know you dealt with these a lot in California, with not just the rebuild, but what about the environmental aspects of this that affect the watershed and everything else that happened that is dealing with these fires? Talk to us a little bit about post fact what happens with these and why it's so dangerous sometimes that these wildfires get out of control when there may not be a lot of loss of life, but it's dangerous for the future.
Sure. Obviously, when a house burns or a neighborhood burns, there is a lot of toxic material that's leached into the ground. I can't speak to what Washington's going to do or what Kentucky would do, but in California anyway, we have hazmat crews that are going out there. They're testing soil samples. They're digging out a big chunk of dirt and taking it to a hazardous material waste site, and trucking it away. If you remember the campfire that burned through the community of Paradise in California, Butte County, there were a hazmat waste site was nearby where I lived, and we had a parade of dump trucks, 80, 100, 200 dump trucks a day going through town every day, 24 hours a day for about 3 months, trucking all this stuff out. Because until the soil and everything is cleaned and certified, there's not going to be any rebuilding going on. So it's a huge effort. On top of that, there's all the infrastructure that burns. Bridges are weakened, trees, telephone poles, all that infrastructure has to be replaced. The roads sometimes get so hot that it leaches out the oil. So every road has to be repaved. So it can take a very, very long time to clean things up. And the people in Spokane are in for a long haul.
Yeah, it sounds like it. They're already talking about getting up to that 1,000 plus structure number. You're into the billions, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars when you're having to replace 1,000 structures, and some of those aren't homes. Some of those are large, businesses and things of that nature. What can you tell folks who in Kentucky, we've been very lucky. We haven't had a situation like this. But if this is a situation that pops up, what is the absolute best thing to do to prepare yourself, not just for the act that's actually happening, but after the fact?
Have a plan. Have someplace, and today it's much easier because we can put all our documents on a cloud server someplace and get back to them. But all your personal papers, your tax records, your property documents, your deeds, all those different things, have them someplace where you can get back to them. Do things for your insurance company. Take pictures of the interior of your house. So when you go to the insurance company, says, I had this 97-inch screen, television and the best sound system and everything else, you can take a picture of it and say, yeah, this is what was in my house. Because they're going to say, no, you didn't. You had this little black and white tube thing that you got from Goodwill.
Yeah.
So, be just judicious. Jewelry, your guns, all right? Gun safes, they work for a while on a structure fire, but if the whole house burns down, that gun safe is still you're going to open it up eventually. You're going to find ashes and blued barrels because they're not going to survive the heat that long. Once you get a locksmith to open up because they're warped. So if those are the things that are important to you, get pictures ahead of time so you can turn those things in. But just have a plan, like we say, know where you're going to go, know how to get a hold of everybody, understand that the cell system is one of the first things that go in a big area-wide disaster. they get A, overwhelmed, or B, they lose power to them. And then you can't talk. And that was your whole plan, was talking to your kids, grandparents, so forth. That's not going to happen. So know where you're supposed to go to a quote unquote safe area that you've already identified. Know how to get there a couple of different ways, because the road's flooded now, or there's a tree across the road from the tornado or something else, and you can't get to where you wanted to go the way you normally get there. So it's just a lot of what if. Just kind of sit back and look around. What if a bad thing happened? What am I going to do? And that's your best bet. And do it now. Have the plan. Tell everybody the plan. Practice the plan. Yeah. And then if it happens, hopefully it'll go better.
Totally agree. Jim Mackinson, we can't thank you enough. We are going to keep an eye on the news out of near Spokane, Washington, and it looks like Idaho and California and Oregon may be dealing with some fires too. So as those become more problematic, we will reach back out to you, have you back on the show. We can't thank you enough for being here with us. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
Very good. Pleasure being with you. Stay safe out there, everyone.
Yep. Talk to you soon. It's always fascinating to have Jim on here. He talks about things that don't necessarily always apply to us on a daily basis, but then he has those gems like, go ahead and take pictures of all the stuff in your house that, are worth enough that you'd want to have them replaced and things like that. So we want to thank Jim for being on here. Craig, we have a lot of stuff that happened overnight. You were up till about 3 a.m. I kind of crashed out about 1 a.m. Because I was just totally whooped after watching everything that was happening. Big board tonight, and we're going to start with the votes. The Associated Press called Michigan's Democratic Senate primary this morning at 9:56 in the morning. Abdul El-Sayed, backed by Bernie Sanders, beat Congresswoman Haley Stevens, backed by Chuck Schumer, by a little less than 1 point. And on the very same night in St. Louis, Wesley Bell beat Cori Bush in a rematch. So the left won the biggest race on the board and lost the other one, which means Tuesday didn't settle that party's argument. It kind of sharpened it. Then to Senator John Fetterman, who gave an interview Tuesday warning his own party about exactly this in language you don't often hear from a sitting Democrat. Then to the White House, which declassified information today about an FBI investigation codenamed Oxford Comma into whether President Trump fired James Comey at Russia's direction. That's hilarious, by the way. We'll tell you what's actually new in that and what isn't. Where Todd Blanche advanced out of committee yesterday, and then Susan Collins from Maine said no. And because Mitch McConnell is still absent, his margin is now exactly 1 vote. Then to the Persian Gulf, where a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz may land this week, and where the terms look a great deal like what Tehran was demanding back in March. Two side topics that we'll get into. We'll talk about the Fauci vote and what's happening with that tomorrow. And there are 5 days left on Kentucky's last scholarship opportunity to fill that seat, if you will, for the men's basketball team. And we will get above the noise. But before we get into tonight's show, welcome into Apex News Above the Noise. We started this show so that you could have all of the information you needed and without all of the spin, and you could sound a little bit smarter at the water cooler and in the boardroom if you needed to. And if you like anything or anything tickles your fancy here, make sure that you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like and share. Make sure you click that notification bell. Doesn't cost you anything. It does. It means the world to us. Craig and I appreciate you all being here. Make sure you share it with someone else who needs to be above the noise. And let's get into our big stories tonight. Craig, the Associated Press called it at 9:56 this morning. Abdul El-Sayed is the Democratic nominee for United States Senate in Michigan, beating Congresswoman Haley Stevens by about 1 point with 99% of ballots counted. It's actually like 0.89% now, I think. At 96%, it was 48.5 to 47.5. That is as close as a statewide primary gets without a recount. Understand the matchup because the labels were unusually honest. El-Sayed is someone who went to medical school and former Wayne County health official, endorsed by Bernie Sanders, running on a call and response slogan you'll hear at every one of his events: money in your pocket, money out of politics, Medicare for all. Stevens is a four-term congresswoman who flipped a suburban seat in 2018, served on the Obama team that rescued the auto industry, and was backed by Senate Democratic leaders Chuck Schumer and others. She campaigned on fighting the tariffs and the war-driven costs we've been covering all week. And here's the detail that tells you the most. According to Ad Impact, That's a group that we're citing here at Impact. Groups supporting Stevens outspent El-Sayed's side on the airwaves by several times over. He won anyway. His campaign manager's line was that this was always going to be the many versus the money. The seat is open because Senator Gary Peters is retiring. Republican nominated former Congressman Mike Rogers unopposed. Senate GOP leadership intervened early specifically to avoid a messy primary of their own, similar to what we were talking about at Fancy Farm. And Rogers narrowly lost 2024 Senate race to Alyssa Slotkin, a much more middle-of-the-road Democrat. Republicans have not won a Senate race in Michigan since 1994, the year I graduated high school. Craig outspent several times over on the airwaves, and he still won. Every consultant in Washington will tell you money is the whole ball game in a primary. And some of the things that I've been seeing is 10-1 when it came to spending. What does it mean when the side with the money loses a race this size, and does that finding travel to our side as well?
It means the Democrat Party's in trouble. They spent over $60 million on Haley Stevens, U.S. Rep. Haley Stevens, and still got beat. So is it a continuing pile on of DSA candidates winning from New York to Colorado, now Michigan? Does money even matter? It's because their belief system is what it is, and it's young people are out there supporting this, believing in this. Maybe the older folks aren't getting out and voting or something like that. This is going to be a studied race for a long, long time because the pollsters predicted an easy victory for El-Sayed.
Yeah, double digits is what a lot of people were saying as we were going in last night.
It was much, much closer. The news media didn't know what to think about it last night. I kept watching in between the channels, and they had no idea. And then you see today in the media, the regular Democrats are saying all kinds of things. We're a big tent party,
big tent party
kind of stuff. I've heard big tent 500 times today, but it's going to be a big tent that they're going to come up and they're going to take over Democrat.
They're not going to have any space for them in their own big tent.
In 5 years, there might not be a Democrat Party.
Yeah. Well, let's do something that we do a lot here on this show. For those of you who are just joining us for the first time, we grade ourselves. We for the shows that we have and the opinions that we have, we go back and look at our homework and see what we did. Because on Tuesday's show, we told you not to watch the winner. We gave you 3 specific things to watch instead, and we owe you those results because we talked about them. Number 1, we said watch the margin, not the winner. A 2-point win means the party is genuinely split, and those are the exact words we said. If it is a 2-point win, the party's genuinely split. A 10-point win means one wing has consolidated. It was less than 1 point. That is a party divided almost exactly in half, and it means nobody consolidated anything on Tuesday. And if anything is to be considered from that, you will probably have some splinters coming off the moderate Democrats who will not vote for a progressive candidate. There are many out there. Number 2, we said watch turnout in the Detroit metro against the rest of the state because the 2 candidates had very different geographic bases. El-Sayed carried Kent County, Macomb County, and his home county of Washtenaw. Stevens spent Tuesday night telling supporters to stay vigilant while votes were counted in Detroit, Flint, and Muskegon. And the last ballots counted were absentees out of Wayne County. That's about as tight a geographic split as you can draw. Number 3, and this is the one we said actually mattered, we said watch whether the losing side endorses by Wednesday morning because Michigan is a real battleground in November, and a sulking faction will hand the seat to Mike Rogers. Haley Stevens called El-Sayed this morning and conceded. Her statement was this, quote, "I'm proud to offer my support as he takes on Mike Rogers in the general election." And she added that Rogers and Trump want us to come out of this primary tired and divided. Mallory McMorrow, who had suspended her campaign but stayed on the ballot and took 4%, endorsed El-Sayed shortly after 2 a.m, calling it a brutal primary. So on our own test, Democrats passed the unity check and failed the consolidation check. Craig, I think the real question here is, did they lose the election by nominating El-Sayed against Mike Rogers?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt because you're going to have the moderate Democrats that are not going to vote for a socialist candidate. They're not going to vote for a candidate associated with the DSA that wants to get rid of prisons, defund police, eliminate ICE, and eliminate America's borders. So you'll have some Democrats that'll go with him. You'll have a bunch of people. It's going to be interesting to see the vote totals from today's record-setting primary versus the general election, because there's not a president running this time. Will more people have voted in the primary versus the general? And how many Democrats and independents who voted in this election vote for Rogers in the fall? And then the other thing is, because it is an open primary, how many Republicans voted for El-Sayed so that they could face him as a weaker opponent?
Listen, I thought you and I talked about that last night. It is a distinct possibility because Rogers was he didn't have anybody opposing him,
Right,
so
he was
there was no
unopposed.
reason. And listen, a majority of those elections last night that people were watching were all Democrat primary elections. They were not the Republican primary elections.
Right.
In fact, there was a weird one last night where a guy won in the Republican primary who had already suspended his campaign 2 months ago
And raised no money.
So
None.
that was in Flint, I think. And so
Yeah.
it's a very weird scenario that's happening. And I don't really know what happened. Perhaps Republicans voting on the Democrat ticket, which you're allowed to do in the primary, it's an open primary, may have sunk his chances. His
Right.
son, I think is his name. It's a very weird scenario.
Well, he met with Hassan Piker Monday, the
Right.
day before the election.
Right.
I mean, and you don't get no more left wing than Hassan Piker. Remember,
No.
that's the one James Carville said. If Hassan Piker becomes a spokesman for the DNC, he's out.
I had multiple people last night message me, and I won't mention their names. Some of them are high up in our state and others, essentially saying Jimmy Carville and I might be leaving the party, and they were serious. This is not your grandfather's Democrat Party. And listen, I understand from the progressive left, that's exactly the way they want it. We don't want the boomers, right? We don't need the boomers. We have our own now, right?
And we
so
don't need the billionaires. Remember
Right.
the Seattle mayor? See you. Don't go on. Get on out of here.
They've co-opted the Democrat Party now. And I'm not saying anything that if this happened to the Republican Party, I'd say the same thing to them. But they have been co-opted by the far left. This was predicted 2 years ago when you had the issues with Kamala Harris and others.
Yep.
Before that,
now
AOC and Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, and she's now embracing DSA philosophies.
Right. And so when all of this is happening, you have to look at it and go, just like you said, you keep saying we have this big tent, but when all of a sudden you don't represent the core values of the people that have been in your party for 50 years, and you say, we don't need you, well, they're going to go vote for the Republican. So
Right. Or not vote at all.
Or not vote at all. And that's, or hold their nose, as some people say, or they may pick a third party candidate and ruin it for you anyway. So it's funny that the establishment Democrats are spouting this thing where they're saying we're a big tent. The DSA candidates are not saying we're a big tent.
Nope.
They're saying we're taking over your boomer party and we're going to push our progressive ideology forward.
One of the New York legislative races that the DSA won about a month ago, they put at the winning event, they put an image of Hakeem Jeffries up on the big screen,
and
they started hollering, "You're next, you're next," and he's been amazingly quiet. After that,
I think if you're in a blue state right now, you have to be greatly concerned that you're going to get primary.
Yeah, they're coming after Schumer and they're coming after Jeffries, and then when you got Kamala Harris saying, well, it's time to revisit the Supreme Court. We might need to pack the court. Well, what would she do if Trump says and the Republicans say, okay, let's do it?
That'd be unconstitutional, Craig.
Let's
put unconstitutional and racist to do it if Trump did it.
You know, so I don't know why a Republican doesn't come out and say, okay, let's do it. We're just going to do it right now. We're not going to wait 2 more years for you to court. We're just going to do it now. We'll put 4 more conservatives on there.
Well, Republicans can't do it because they can't get rid of the filibuster. It's like this idea that we can't do anything because we're beholden to this filibuster, which means nothing.
Maybe for something like that, we would change it out. But
well, you'd think they do it for the Save America Act if they're going to do it for anything, but what do we know, right?
Yeah.
Go
But
figure.
it was just funny listening to her saying that and saying she's changed her mind. So she has shifted over to the DSA side and their belief system because they know if they don't have them, they don't have a shot of winning any federal races.
Well, and here's why we're covering what happened in St. Louis in the same story, because now you're getting kind of mixed ideas of what's actually happening in the Democrat Party. What happened the same night that El-Sayed won Michigan, Congressman Wesley Bell, a first-time congressman, beat former Congresswoman Cori Bush in Missouri's 1st District, who he had beaten previously, a rematch of the 2024 race.
Easily.
In which Bell unseated her after 2 terms. It's a solid blue district covering St. Louis, so Bell is heavily favored in November. Bush rose to national prominence as a Black Lives Matter activist and became a member of the group known as the Squad.
She's a flamethrower.
Yeah, she blamed her 2024 defeat on the pro-Israel lobby, which spent millions against her. This rematch was, by every account, ugly. They debated on July 24th, and it got very personal very, very fast. Bell accused Bush of calling Kamala Harris a fascist, citing a 2024 interview. Her actual words were that she was seeing fascism right now with a Joe Biden presidency and a Vice President Harris presidency. Bell's line, "You called her a fascist at a time when the election came down to a few thousand votes in 5 or 6 states. That's not true. And everyone understood the assignment except you." Bush has answered, "Did I call them fascists? No." Bell went further, accusing Bush of a penchant for exploiting tragedies, a reference to federal charges her husband faced over pandemic-era relief. That hurts right about now. Bush cut in, that is actual defamation, and Bell raised her paying herself a salary and paying her husband, who provided her security, out of campaign donations, which is legal under certain rules. Bush's response, "I don't talk about your personal stuff, even though I know it," whatever that means.
Well, it could be legal, but does it pass a smell test?
Smell test, right.
She paid him a pile of money through her campaign donors.
Craig, that debate tape is brutal, and it's Democrats doing it to Democrats. Bell's closing argument was essentially that Bush cost the party the White House by trashing Harris 3 weeks before an election. I don't know if that's a fair charge or not, but it's fair in this because this got very, very personal. But he beat her like a drum last night. It wasn't even. It was
almost
over.
2-1. Almost 2-1.
Yeah, it was over with 30% of the votes in. They were calling it. And so to me, when you spend the kind of energy that she thought she was going to have, especially with this left-wing progressive ideology that was obviously popular enough in Michigan, that didn't correlate to the Midwest in St. Not Your thoughts on that?
I think it's more because you look at El-Sayed, he presents well. He doesn't throw flames. He's not a flamethrower, nothing like that. He doesn't make wild accusations. He doesn't call his own party leader a fascist like she did. She's a flamethrower, and there's no two ways around it. And she did it to herself. I think the public in St. Louis, the voters, got tired of hearing all her just constant bashing of everything. And then she goes bashing Democrats. It's just, and this guy is apparently a well-liked individual in St. Louis. No, you don't hear him on the news every day for making these crazy remarks. And that's why, we knew she was going to get beat. I just didn't know she was going to get beat that badly.
Yeah. And you never know until the votes are counted.
And how much money did she raise? I don't think she raised a whole lot.
No, but not the $60 million that was spent in Michigan, but it wasn't
$60 million on Haley Stevens.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Yeah, $60 million that was spent on that you didn't get anywhere. So what actually separated the two candidates? Not healthcare. It wasn't the minimum wage. It was Israel. That was essentially when it came right down to it in Missouri. And here is the single most striking fact we found preparing tonight's show. Earlier this month, the House voted on eliminating $3.3 billion in assistance to Israel. Wesley Bell voted against eliminating it. And he was in the minority among House Democrats. More Democrats voted in favor of ending that aid than against it. Sit with that just for a second, okay? That's something that would have been unheard of. And in fact, had you proposed that just 10 years ago, the idea would have been so
It never even got a vote.
anti-Semitic, that you would
Yeah.
have been hauled out of all of D.C. and never held office again. The man who just won the establishment's victory in St. Louis holds a position that is now the minority position inside his own party's House caucus. Bell's framing was, "I'm no fan of Bibi Netanyahu, but we're still going to stand with our allies." Bush's position: cut off military aid while human rights violations are happening, adding that funding for other things they may need she has no problem with. She says Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Bell asked that question directly, did not answer it. So the honest read on Tuesday night is not establishment beats progressive. It's that the party's voters in St. Louis reelected a man whose Israel position his own caucus has already moved past, while the party's voters in Michigan nominated a candidate the socialist left campaigned hard for and is no fan of the nation of Israel.
Yeah,
That argument is not resolved. In fact, it's probably accelerating throughout today and tonight, and is now running through a general election in a state that decides presidents, in the state of Michigan. Does the Israel issue move any needles at all, especially when you're talking about a majority of the state of Michigan is just working class folks? They're worried about,
the rural.
they're worried about the cost of things. They're worried about, how are you going to help me? Those kitchen table discussions. I don't think that that's going to, I don't think that the idea of Israel and the Democrats' position on that is going to change many minds.
Well, the Bush-Bell race was personality. I think it was 100% personality driven. It's just attack, and it's what she's perfect at. She's good at it, but it didn't help her this time. Up in Michigan, they were voting on, if you listen to El-Sayed's previous stuff during this campaign, he's a supporter of Israel. He said he wants to keep Jewish people safe. Different than what he said from 2016 to 2020. But, he wants to keep the police in there, but I think he's just campaign talk. He's a different person than he was in the late 2010s. So the only way you can find out is, like Nancy Pelosi said, we'll figure out what it is after we vote on it.
Well,
and that's going to be the case with him, where he's really at.
Yeah. On the very night those votes were being counted, John Fetterman was 200 miles away in Washington telling a room full of students that his party is drifting somewhere he can't follow. And we need to get into this because I know we mentioned Fetterman a lot on here, but he's issuing some warnings to the Democrat Party, and I don't know if they're listening. He appeared on CNN today, and before we get into what was said last night, let's show what he said just today, which I think is important.
Joining us here in the Situation Room right now is Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. I know you've criticized several of El-Sayed's progressive policies. You've been involved in a public dispute with him as well. What's your reaction to his victory that we have now projected in this key battleground state of Michigan?
Well, I think it definitely puts the seat in play. Michigan typically doesn't really elect a Republican in the Senate for a while. And now Rogers was a very strong candidate, objectively. He barely lost to Slotkin, and she's a very strong candidate, and she just barely won back then. So now, if you've seen some of the polling, El-Sayed is under maybe 5 to 6 points or more against him. And now some real money is going to flood into that state. And a lot of the things that he has done and said during the primary, we're going to come back to haunt, like campaigning with a guy that loves Hamas and is very proud to stand with communist regimes.
So you're talking about Hassan Piker?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Who was out there with El-Sayed on the campaign trail. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, you'll be able to find out what he really thinks. Is he still going to campaign with a guy that proud to love Hamas? We'll see. Are you going to campaign with a guy that openly loved Mao and even dresses like him for events? So overall, you're going to find out he was he had a very arrogant campaign, and now today he just discovered that less than a majority of your state's only Democrats didn't even want you and vote for you. You came in around 48%. So, you have a real situation as Democrats now that puts that seat in play.
President Trump just moments ago called El-Sayed's projected victory in Michigan, and I'm quoting Trump now, great news for the Republican Party, labeling El-Sayed a, quote, communist loser who hates Jews and Israel, end quote. How do you respond to what the president is saying, and do you agree with his assessment?
I'm saying objectively, as a Democrat that understands how to win a competitive state, it's like it does put it in play. And 100% the Republicans were eager to run against him, and that's where we are. And now you see how close it was, 14,000 votes out
14,
of 1.5 million votes. And now that's a divided primary. And he has said a lot of negative things towards her and other people. And now I think he's going to find out that he has to mend fences, as he said. Well, I guess we'll see.
So Tuesday, while Michigan was voting, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, who you just saw there, spoke at the Israel on Campus Coalition's National Leadership Summit in Washington, an event that drew more than 800 pro-Israel college students for advocacy training. And afterward, he gave an interview that is going to be played a lot. The subject was Hassan Piker, who he was just talking about there, a streamer with an enormous following on Twitch, who has become an influential voice on the Democratic left. Piker backed Zoran Mamdani in New York and campaigned alongside Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan. Fetterman's words last night were, "I would never try to elevate a communist just because he has followers on Twitch." That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, he does dress like a Chinese communist.
He does. And then, but overall, if you identify with a communist who praises Mao and Cuba for these places, that should be foreign to any Democrat. Without a doubt, that's having an impact. We want to be careful with one thing here. The characterization of Piker as having praised Mao and defended Cuba's government is from Fox News. However, we have both seen Hassan Piker, and he actually went to Cuba, was talking about the virtues of the Cuban government. He's been to China. He has toured the Chinese area and had a stream about how wonderful the Chinese economy was and things of that nature. What's not in dispute is what Fetterman said, though. That's on camera. And what he said is that a sitting United States senator believes his own party is elevating people whose politics should be disqualifying inside it. He called the direction of the party troubling. Craig, Fetterman keeps doing this, saying the thing his colleagues say privately, because people are saying this inside the party.
Oh, sure.
They absolutely are. On the record to an outlet his colleagues won't talk to, he's told everyone he's not becoming a Republican, even though a majority of the people, Republican and Democrat and independents in the state of Pennsylvania, want him to switch. So what is he doing here? And does anybody in his party actually listen to him anymore?
Well, he's putting the warning out. Now, will he switch? Who knows? Nobody knows except him. And his approval rating in Pennsylvania is around 30%.
Yep.
They will definitely primary him. There's no two ways about it. And if he wins that primary, that might be the final straw on the camel's back and pushes him over to the Republican Party, or he might go independent and caucus with Republicans.
Listen,
either way, like Bernie Sanders does with the Democrats.
I don't have – there are a lot of things that John Fetterman and I do not agree on from policy standpoints, from social issues, but fiscal issues, I think we agree on a lot. I like the fact that you could be a Democrat and we can disagree on a lot of things, but there are things that we could get along on. That's the only thing I hear from John Fetterman that is different from the rest of his party. It's almost as if it's anti-democratic to want to work with Republicans to better your country.
Anti-Democrat Party.
Anti-Democrat Party. Yeah. To work with somebody who is not a Democrat to better your country. And that's all it seems John Fetterman has ever tried to do. And now we see it from the perspective of he's saying that's not even the biggest issue right now. The biggest issue right now is we're electing people who don't just hate the country of Israel, they hate Jewish people. And for some reason, Jewish Americans are voting for the Democrat Party. I don't understand that.
Well, right. A good percentage of them are. But remember in what was the book? What was the name
1984?
Of it? No. What was Kamala Harris's book name? But I can't think of it right now. But in her book, she said that Josh Shapiro wouldn't be a good VP candidate, even though he would have won them the state of Pennsylvania, because he's Jewish. She knew back then that the Democrat Party, for what I cannot figure it out, why they do not like Jewish people or Israel. They're our ally. I've never seen something like this, but it continues to grow and grow and grow. It grows on our college campuses. We saw that in the last couple of years. And so it's festered now out into the Democrat Party world. Now you've got candidates openly saying, we don't like Israel. We don't like, even though Israel got attacked on October 7th, they're not allowed to fight back. You know, it's horrible. There you go.
107 days.
Yeah, it's that's what's wrong with the Democrat Party. I don't understand. I'm just glad they don't say, hey, we hate Europe too.
Well,
because if they did,
give it time.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I do not understand the hatred of the Jewish people.
Well, let's talk about what the president has said. He's been making a version of this argument for months, and it's worth putting the two side by side because they are not the same argument. In June, after socialists won primaries in New York, Trump said, these are not social democrats. These are hardcore, godless communists, and called it the most serious threat to our country since its existence. And late Tuesday night, asked what it means if more socialists win primaries. He said the Democratic Party is a mess and they should form another party, the Communists of America Party, and then it would get about 10% of the vote. Now, Fetterman is a sitting Democratic senator making a critique from inside about who his party elevates and what it tolerates. The president is an opposing party leader making a case about the whole party. Those land very differently, and they should. And we're going to say the fair thing here because it's true, because we don't want it said about us. Abdul El-Sayed is a progressive who drew support from socialists and campaigned with Piker. He is not a professed communist. And calling him one isn't an analysis, it's a shortcut. His own allies have publicly rejected the claim that Democrats are embracing the far left. That is baloney, though.
That's talk. That's all that is.
You can think El-Sayed's politics are wrong for Michigan, which you and I both do. I have family in Michigan. I feel bad for them if he were to win. But we don't have to do that without pretending he's something he isn't. And frankly, if you want the argument Fetterman is making to actually land on persuadable Democrats, the fastest way to kill it is to overstate it. However, that being said, Craig, it is painfully obvious that the Democrat Socialists of America and the progressive left are openly saying what they are doing and what they are going to do, which is co-opt the entire Democrat Party because they don't have enough votes on their own. They're going to infiltrate that. And then at the end of the day, they're going to push through their own agendas and get rid of essentially what we consider the Democrat Party, which you and I were both members of for many, many years.
Yeah, I was most of my life. I was looking for one post, a message somebody sent to me a little while ago, but saying something like, well, when did the Republican Party become all MAGA? Well, there's not a comparison because the Republican Party can say it's MAGA, but they still vote for America. They still support Israel. They still support Europe. They support our allies, and they support other Republicans. The DSA, completely different. They say they are taking over the party. They say they're coming after Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. They say their preferred candidate as of this week for the 2028 president is AOC, not any of the other much, much more experienced candidates with much, much smarter candidates. They're just not out there.
I've seen her foreign policy discussions. Marco Rubio
over in Europe, it was embarrassing.
Marco Rubio will eat her lunch regularly.
Right. Yeah, and so that's the difference. It's the MAGA still supports America. DSA, which is taking over the Democrat Party from the inside, because I keep saying America cannot be defeated from the outside, but we can be defeated from the inside. And the DSA is defeating and ruining the Democrat Party that we've grown up with.
Right before our very eyes. Well, From that wild story, from an argument inside one party to a document released by the White House this morning about an FBI investigation into whether the President of the United States fired his own FBI director on Russian orders. Let's get right into that.
They're reaching. They're just throwing crap on the wall, see if it sticks.
This morning, the White House released declassified information showing that the FBI opened an investigation into whether President Trump was acting as an asset for Russia when he fired FBI Director James Comey in 2017. The code name was Oxford Comma. We understand that it's misspelled here. This is the DOJ and FBI investigation. It's what they named it. According to an administration official, it was a subcomponent of Crossfire Hurricane, the broader FBI investigation into potential coordination between the 2016 Trump campaign and the Russian government, which was all based on lies. We know that now. And the predicate, the stated basis for opening it, was the newly elected president's decision to fire the FBI director, which is insane, by the way,
Right.
because every FBI director, other than J. Edgar Hoover, is fired when somebody from a different party comes in.
And J. Edgar Hoover should have been fired.
Yeah, right. Many times over. But he was a very powerful and scary man, and a lot of people were terrified of him.
He blackmail.
Two details matter more than the rest. First, the case was marked sensitive, according to the official briefing that's out. That designation is generally used to keep a case off the books from other agents. Second, the agents who opened it said they believed it was going to be the least intrusive method to address what they considered a serious national security risk. Oxford Comma was eventually rolled into Robert Mueller's larger investigation, and the official says it was later found not to have any merit whatsoever when the rest of the Mueller probe was closed down. Craig, the FBI opened a counterintelligence file on a sitting president predicated on a personal decision the Constitution gives him the authority to make, and had been done a million times.
Yeah.
It wasn't a million, but a dozen times
Right.
prior to him, and marked it in a way that kept it from other agents. Before we get to whether it went anywhere, is opening that file at all, especially knowing what we know now and the garbage of the Steele dossier and everything else, is it defensible at all?
No. They're looking for anything. They can't find nothing to get on Trump. I mean, I guess they got the pool, the White House pool. They can't find nothing to hang on him, so now they're going back with their favorite thing: Russia, and saying that he's a puppet of Putin, or him and Putin are buddies.
He's doing a terrible job if he's a puppet of Putin, by the way.
Right, because last time I checked, Ukraine is kicking their butt.
And we have tariffs on everything that Russia has as well.
Right, we just added more. Yeah, and if he loved, he would stop Europe from. Well, right now we're selling munitions to NATO. NATO is giving them to Ukraine.
Right.
All he has to do is say, we're not going to sell them no more. And that's the end of that. And then Europe will have to scramble to try to find some of their own antiquated munitions to help Ukraine.
I love that visual you give, because everybody changes their profile picture to the Ukrainian flag and everything else.
Yeah.
And the one man who could truly be a detriment to Ukraine has not been, and has actually helped fund what many will call years from now a victory for Ukraine.
Well, remember in 2016, I guess it was circa 2016, when Trump sent Javelin missiles to Ukraine to
preparing
hit the Russian tanks and blow them up. And he said, look what Obama sent him. He sent him blankets so they could stay warm in the winter.
Now,
so who's supporting Ukraine and who's not?
Yeah, it's almost, and you and I know these people who, in every one of their profiles, they have the Ukrainian flag and everything. You should really enjoy what the Republicans are doing then. I don't.
Ukraine on a map.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, you're exactly right.
So many people, show me where you support Ukraine so much.
Yeah.
Show me where Ukraine is at on a map.
Well, we're going to do the one thing on this program, which is tell you what's new and what isn't, because a lot of coverage tonight on this story, if you were to turn on any news station, is not going to do that. What is not new is the existence of the investigation, that the FBI opened a counterintelligence inquiry into President Trump was working on behalf of Russia after he fired Comey has been publicly reported since January of 2019. That's 7.5 years ago. What is new today is the code name, the actual documents, the confirmation that it sat inside Crossfire Hurricane, and that sensitive marking. Those are real additions, and the marking in particular is the piece worth your attention. But this is not the first time anyone has heard this. And if somebody tells you tonight that a bombshell just dropped, they're either new to the story or hoping you are.
Right.
And here's
Yeah.
the part that a lot of outlets will skip. The caveats came from the administration itself. The official who briefed this said the theory was not backed up by any evidence at all. In his own words, I was unaware that the predicate for the obstruction included a claim that Donald Trump was somehow acting on behalf of Vladimir Putin. And then the short of it is almost everything in the FBI's possession at that point had debunked or ruled out that Trump or his campaign was colluding with Russia at that time at all.
Under the Democrat investigation.
Under the Democrat investigation.
Yeah.
Craig, the administration's own officials say the theory had no evidence behind it and that the Bureau's own material had already ruled out collusion. If that is true, which it's not only a distinct possibility, it's very likely for a couple of reasons. One, we know what Crossfire Hurricane was, and we know that Robert Mueller essentially said there was never anything there. It was all based on the Steele dossier, which was all made up hullabaloo, and there's nothing there. But let's just say that the scales fall off people's eyes and they realize that. If that is true, the story isn't that Trump was investigated, it's that he was investigated on a premise that the very investigators themselves and their own files contradicted at this point. So when I wake up in the morning and I hear about how when I get on my TikTok or my Facebook or Reels or whatever else, and people are like, this administration is weaponizing the Justice Department. What are you talking about? Because that's all that happened for the last 10 years.
Right.
At this point, I think it is so obvious that James Comey and his people were traitorous, awful humans that were doing anything they could to have the president either impeached or harmed at some point, to be quite honest with you. And now you look back on it and you see the duplicitous nature of all of that. Somebody needs to be punished for that.
Well, the Democrats, under Biden and under Obama and Hillary Clinton with her using bleach bit on her own server that she's communicating to everybody with. All I can see is they want to give everything away for free to get any kind of vote they can. And then they want power regardless of what it is. If you support these DSA candidates, these communist candidates, you say, we're going to hear the phrase big tent 5 million times between now and November. They're going to keep saying they're a big tent, but then they're going to find out that big tent is coming after every one of them, and Schumer and Jeffries will be one, because we know if AOC goes after Schumer, she's going to beat him. She'll beat him easily.
Yeah.
And then that'll open up her path to the presidency. But all these investigations have now been proven to have been rigged, paid for,
lied about,
weaponizing, lied about, and the media's carried the message. They
carried the water. Dana Bash this weekend still carrying the water. This administration.
The worst of all on the Fauci stuff. He's the worst of all in his own book. He did his own thing. But I just think it's anything about power. And if the same thing come out on a Republican, I'd say the same thing. If all they want to do is rule, and they don't care how they get there or who gives them that number that they can get over 50 or they can get over 213 or 14, whatever it is, in the House. If that's the only thing, that's not good for America. None of this that the Democrats are doing is good for America right now, because it's not for America. It's just for power. And then when they get in power, what are they going to do? They're
weaponize the DOJ and the FBI.
Look at Mondami in New York. Yeah, they're going to come after every Republican. But look at Mondami in New York. He's wanting the free groceries at first. That's what he ran on: free groceries, free bus.
Now they're just 30%.
Free transportation. So the buses didn't work. The free taxi rides or whatever you call it, they didn't work. He had free food. Now it's just certain food items that are 30% off. And now he can't find nobody to.
Yeah.
to answer the RFPs.
Yeah, the
to
New
open
York
up
Post
the
said
5
that there's
stores.
nobody offering to sell the stuff because they can't make money off of it.
Right, they can't make nothing, and now they've taken away the ID card as of today, meaning anybody, a rich dude can come in that lives nearby
Yeah,
and get
that was
that
poorly
30% off.
planned. Yeah,
Yeah, anybody can
bad
come in,
optics.
and I still say that if they open one up, if they do, it'll be raided so fast by mobs of people.
Yeah.
That because they'll say, well, what's the government going to do? We already know they're not going to arrest us because they don't arrest us now.
Yeah.
And if they do, we'll be out of jail before the paperwork's done.
Yeah. My take on this one, and I want to hold two things that a lot of people tonight will say both can't be true. One, if the FBI opened a counterintelligence case on a sitting president because he exercised his constitutional authority to fire an appointee, which clearly James Comey was truly butthurt by the fact that he did that.
That's why he did 8647.
And he's continued to deal with that. And mark that case to keep it hidden from other agents of the Bureau. That is a serious institutional failure, and it deserves daylight. I've said on this program before that the machine didn't get dismantled; it just changed hands, and I truly believe that. This is the earlier owner, and the people who spent years telling Americans that concerns about the Bureau's conduct in that period were paranoid have some accounting to do at this point because the file existed, it had a name, the program was already set up. The second thing is this was reported in 2019. The administration's own official said the theory had no evidence and the investigation was closed years ago as meritless. So the honest headline isn't that we learned the FBI did this. It's that we now have the paperwork, and the paperwork includes marking that suggests the agents knew how it would look. That is still a story. It is a smaller one than it's being sold as, and this program is going to keep telling you the difference. And the last thing, which is the part I actually can't get past, a White House released this on a Wednesday when the man, it is embarrassing, is in federal court arguing the president is prosecuting him out of spite. You didn't have to do that.
Right.
And that's the poor optics from this administration. You don't have to do this. You're not going to sway a judge and a jury by doing it. Just let things play out. This was out in 2019. They could have released this at any point, and it seems like it's a little poor taste in the way they're doing it now.
Well, and don't forget Peter Strzok.
Oh, that guy.
He's a boss in the FBI and stated in written communication that he's going to bring down Trump any way he can.
Yep.
The last time I checked, that's treasonous.
It is. I mean, it's
the
President
FBI, they're going after a sitting president within the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and you had Comey leading. Comey had to know about it.
Yeah,
he had to, and you got those guys going after a Republican president just because they don't like him.
Yeah,
I mean, what's going to happen when Trump's gone in 28 or January 29? They're going to say, JD, Marco, you supported. We'll hear Trump's name till the day I die.
Yeah,
Democrats will blame everything on Trump from this point forward with any Republican candidate.
I think the biggest thing about this, not just the fact that the Trump administration did this right here, but this idea that somehow Trump is near Hitler status because he weaponizes the DOJ, as if the DOJ hasn't been weaponized. I can think all the way back to Eric Holder and Obama.
Well, go back to J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah, and you're right, J. Edgar Hoover and Nixon and others who utilized the FBI to get rid of the people that they didn't like. It's just something that needs to get cleaned up. I don't know what the answer is at this point, but we'll go from
people got to use their own brain.
They do
their own research. Don't watch the TV channels, whether it's Fox or CNN or MS Now. Well, you got to do your own brain, own research, and make your own mind up. Don't be led around by your nose.
And don't think don't think that there is anything new under the sun either. Trump is not doing anything that President Obama never did. I'm sorry, he hasn't, especially when it comes to weaponization of the DOJ, because last I checked, nobody in the Biden administration has been to prison, whereas people who worked for President Trump and President Trump were convicted of things post fact to ruin his career.
Right. Yep.
So I don't want to hear from that side. From an old investigation to a current confirmation fight, where the president's attorney general nominee cleared committee yesterday, and then a Republican senator did the arithmetic on him, and that needs to be discussed. Todd Blanche's nomination to be attorney general advanced out of the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday after 2 weeks of being frozen by John Cornyn and Tom Tillis, and after Blanche signed the order killing the anti-weaponization fund. We covered that, and then hours later, Senator Susan Collins yesterday of Maine announced she will vote no on the floor. Her statement is worth reading closely because it's not a shot at Blanche personally. Her words, "While I believe Mr. Blanche is a capable lawyer, the Department of Justice had become increasingly political." Where were you? I don't know, anywhere in the last 30 years, Susan.
Your whole career.
Yeah. Mr. Blanche has taken several actions that have further eroded the department's independence, and that is the basis for my vote to oppose his confirmation.
No,
she listed 3 things. 1, the anti-weaponization fund, which is gone. 2, the May settlement shielding the president, his sons, and the Trump family business from IRS audits. The protections she pointed out are unavailable to other American taxpayers. Not if they sue the IRS and win.
Right.
And 3, which has gotten almost no coverage and probably should, efforts by federal prosecutors under Blanche's leadership to indict Senators Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin over a video urging service members to resist unlawful orders, which was deplorable, by the way.
Right. That's the worst video by a legislator in my lifetime.
Yeah, I agree. Collins called their statements ill-advised, but constitutionally protected. They are constitutionally protected, maybe, but not in the way that those are former members of the military.
Right. Saying don't obey orders.
She also noted that more than 1,200 former Justice Department employees spanning 14 administrations formally opposed this nomination. I would dig into the registration of those 1,200 Justice Department
employees. Who cares what those 1,200 department that are probably...
They're the problem to begin with.
95% Democrat. He's not there to represent them. They're going to work for him. He's there to represent the United States. All 350 million of them, not 1,200 Justice Department employees. That don't mean squat to me.
No, I totally agree. I will also say this. Susan Collins voted to confirm Merrick Garland.
Yep.
One of the worst attorney generals, and that's objectively the man who put little old ladies in prison, by the way. Just a terrible, terrible representation. She voted yes on Merrick Garland, but can't stomach voting yes for Todd Blanche. The hypocrisy in that and lunacy is absolutely crazy. Merrick Garland essentially said he's going to go after the people who didn't follow the administration and did. And now she's saying, well, Todd Blanche might because, 1,200 people that are former Justice Department people, they don't like him. I think that's why I'm going to vote for him.
And where's the list of 1,200 people? Where's the names?
It's the same as the scientists who told us to follow COVID, I guess.
I saw 1,600 in the Justice Department that called me and said they support Blanche.
That's right. It's crazy.
How many called you? I mean,
I had 2,400. 2,400 called me.
So, screw her. I mean, I ain't going to say that.
Don't say that. But I will say
go ahead.
She's running for office, and she's trying to win that moderate liberal Democrat or independent voter out of Maine, and that's the only reason she's talking like this at this point.
Yeah, she's afraid of Troy Jackson. She's 100%. Afraid of losing her office, and she's going to say anything she can that's anti-Trump to win again.
Yep.
And then she'll go right back to being a Trump voter for 96% of everything he proposes.
Yeah, this is controversial, so she wants her name out there, and then she can go back to Maine and say, "See, I stood up to Trump." Yeah. She knows what the math is, but let's get into the math.
And if she loses, then we'll take John Fetterman, and they can have her. Just let her change to a Democrat.
Easy switch, right?
And we'll take Fetterman. Yeah.
And this is where the story we've been telling since Monday comes back around. Republicans hold 53 Senate seats, but Majority Leader John Thune is operating with an effective majority of 52 because that guy from Kentucky, Senator Mitch McConnell, remains absent with a serious health issue. I think we're at day 54.
Yeah, he's killing his legacy.
He has not been seen publicly since June 14th. We covered that Monday when Governor Beshear was demanding proof of his capacity to serve. Here's what that absence now means in practice. All 45 Democrats and both independents are expected to vote against Blanche. Collins is a no, which means Todd Blanche can afford to lose exactly one more Republican senator and still be confirmed. Senator John Curtis of Utah, who had been wobbling, announced yesterday he's a yes after what he called robust discussions. These guys have to be exhausted after all this talk. But Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana are both publicly non-committal. Murkowski says she wants additional conversations with Blanche. Either one of them flips it. And one more detail worth having, Collins spoke at length with John Cornyn on Tuesday night before announcing Cornyn's description. In her typical due diligence, she asked me a lot of questions. So the two senators who spent 2 weeks extracting written commitments from the Justice Department appear to have briefed the senator, who then decided the commitments weren't enough. Then what do you want, Susan?
Yeah.
What do you want, Susan?
She wants to win her election. Same thing with
exactly.
Lisa Murkowski.
Yeah.
They're not Republican.
Craig,
even though Alaska's a Republican state,
well, it's what we talked about with the Democrat Party is a monolith. You cannot tell me otherwise. And the Republican Party is made up of a bunch of
6 or 7
who will vote depending upon how the way the wind blows, and if they can gain a vote here or there. If you're making decisions about how people are going to vote, then you don't have the backbone to be a leader. That's just how it is.
They should vote for what's best for America, not vote for their campaign.
Not what's best for them, even if it means you lose your seat.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You cannot, once you get that power, once you're a U.S. senator and you got that power and all the privileges that goes with it, it's hard to give it up.
Yeah.
But Rand Paul has seen the light. He has come back to the fold, which is really kind of surprising me.
Well, he has, and I think he understands that while we are not a big tent, if you are a Republican and you support the leader of the Republican Party, which right now is held by the man in the White House, then you get some things. He's also about to be the senior senator from a very important state where a lot of stuff actually happens. Craig, an empty seat in Kentucky is now the difference potentially between comfortable and one vote on a cabinet confirmation. Whatever you think of Bashir's motives on Monday, and I obviously had a problem with them, doesn't this make the underlying question about McConnell's absence a lot harder to wave off as a Kentuckian?
Yeah, and what Bashir said in whether somebody's there or not, as long as McConnell's away, that's a no vote on the SAVE Act.
It is.
But what I can't understand, his state where he was born has been operating under the SAVE Act since he's been alive, since I've been alive. I've always had to show an ID to vote. So I don't understand the big deal about why they're so tore up. I mean, I do. They want to get
it's personal. It has nothing to do with.
Yeah. And I don't know what's happened to McConnell in the last year for him to turn on the Republican Party like this.
I'd say 3 or 4 years. Like I'd
true.
say that this has been a downhill with regard to his positions with the Republican Party.
I'm almost to the point of saying that it's not McConnell running his office, it's his staffers. And his staffers are encouraging a doddering old man on how to vote.
Well,
that's I don't know. I don't see how a guy that was Mr. Republican his entire life can switch like he has.
I don't know how to say this delicately. The people in McConnell's office are doing a disservice for the people of Kentucky. I realize that they're still receiving pay because he's still in Senate and they work for him, many of them from Kentucky. But this is getting ridiculous. You and I share videos back and forth of citizen journalists who are just walking up to his spokesperson saying, give us anything. And they won't even talk.
Right.
They refuse to talk. His spokesperson, last name by the name Penn, she refuses to talk. I'm a Kentuckian. I'm offended. Like, at least say something. We deserve that. And don't give any more credence to Andy Bashir. Don't give him any more, so he can go to the social media or wherever else and take a victory lap off something that he said. Come back and say something. And the longer it goes, every single day that there's not proof of life, and I hate to say it that way, But the longer it goes, and don't send me some AI generated picture with the, the room numbers on the inside.
Yeah,
You've got
yeah.
like 4 autoscopes.
Room
Okay.
numbers on top and room numbers to the
Yeah.
left.
Don't give me that. How hard is it to just get on a Zoom call, or I don't know. Scott Jennings is in Washington D.C. all the time. Just go there.
Well, and you got. He doesn't have Secret Service protection because I checked. He does, since he's not majority leader. It doesn't follow him the rest of his life like it does. The president, even the VP. Even the VP
he has Capitol Hill
doesn't have lifelong.
security. He has Capitol Hill security outside of the hospital.
So somebody's got to be going in that room. If there's in that room, do they got the entire floor locked off? Somebody can sit at the other end of the hallway and with a Zoom camera, just see if if you sit there 24 or 48 hours and nobody goes in, no doctor goes in and out of the room, his wife doesn't go in or out of the room, is there anybody in the room?
Yeah, well, it's all questionable. From one vote in the Senate to a deal in the Persian Gulf that may be signed this week, and that looks a great deal like what Tehran was demanding 5 months ago. This is a short side story that we just want to update people on because we talk about it every single day. We might as well talk about it again.
Yeah.
The president said today that a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz could come as early as this evening. Hasn't yet. Yesterday, his words were, it could happen tomorrow or the next day. A lot of progress has been made, and they called me and they said, please, let's talk. I love when he does the, as if he's third party talking. He also again threatened to attack Iran if no deal is reached and described these negotiations as a last chance. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said a deal could land today or tomorrow as well and would allow freedom of movement for commercial vessels. The president made a prediction we should all write down, and we will come back and grade it at some point. The gasoline will fall to $2.50 a gallon if the strait fully opens. I'd start writing checks. It's about $4.09 right now nationally. That's a checkable claim, and we will check it here on this show because that's what we do.
$3.69 in Frankfurt.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Iran continues to say there are no direct negotiations with the United States, only talks with Oman. A Pakistani source tells The National that Pakistan is acting as a mediator, passing messages between Washington and Tehran, and that indirect talks are in an advanced stage, and an outlet affiliated with the Revolutionary Guard blamed the president's threats for slowing things down, saying that as long as U.S. interference and threats of military attack against Iran continue, the agreement will be delayed. A senior Gulf official familiar with the talks put the odds of a deal by Friday at about 50-50. I will say this, Craig. I don't believe any of it. I don't see any of it happening. The only thing that the people in the Middle East understand is force. They don't understand. They do not understand negotiations and peace settlements.
Right. Well, it was on CNN today, right before we went on, about an hour before we went on, that the Arab official you talked about, or the Iranian official you talked about, said it'll be Friday. She said, well, Trump said it's today.
Right.
So what do we do? It's 2 days.
Yeah.
But they made a big deal out of Trump saying it could be as early as tonight. That don't mean it's happening tonight.
Half their day is on a different day anyway.
Right. and the Arab official, the Iranian official said it could be as early as Friday. I mean, good Lord.
Well, and the other thing,
is working against us, working against the U.S. to get this deal done.
I will say this. If what we're hearing right now about what is in these terms right now, the main term, one that Trump didn't want, and you and I will say is garbage if they allow it, is that there will be a 60-day interim agreement, but all vessels would have to coordinate with Iran about getting through the Strait of Hormuz.
What? What's
Get
the
it?
point of it?
That's the whole point of this whole thing. What are you doing?
Why does Iran have to control it? That's what I don't understand. What's the big deal? And I hope, like I posted on one of my pages today, is that in 5 years with Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Oman building all these pipelines that'll go to the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, the Strait of Hormuz will be nothing. Iran will lose even more power. We keep the sanctions on them where they can't sell their oil. Who cares if they go through the Strait of Hormuz or not? Because they'll be going to.
We've been bombing the crap.
They'll be going to the Mediterranean. They'll be going to the Red Sea, and picking up their oil there, and it might take an extra little bit of time to fill up the tankers there. But if you think about it, in the bottom of the Red Sea, it's a shorter trip from there instead of driving up in through the Strait, up into the Persian Gulf.
Yeah,
I hope they build it. They darn sure got the money to build it.
Yeah,
and then that takes Iran out of the picture for the whole entire planet.
Yeah. Well, let's talk real quickly about what's happening tomorrow. The vote on Anthony Fauci's contempt and the motion that the resolution Rand Paul has brought forward, is tomorrow, August 6th at 8:30 in the morning. Craig, you'll have to get up earlier than normal to watch that again. Chairman Rand Paul's committee announced the schedule Tuesday, and we told you all that as well. What is actually new in that resolution, Paul released the text of the resolution, and it contains an argument he hadn't made before. Until now, his position was that Fauci's Fifth Amendment claim fails because President Biden pardoned him. He's now added a second theory that Fauci waived any remaining privilege by giving an opening statement before invoking it. His words, "During the hearing, I ruled that the Fifth Amendment did not apply because of the pardon, and that Fauci had waived any remaining privilege by giving an opening statement. I ordered him to answer and warned him about contempt, yet he still refused. That is obstruction of a congressional investigation." And note the mechanism here. The resolution calls for Vice President J.D. Vance, in his role as President of the Senate, to transmit the committee's report to the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. Paul has been candid about the limits. "All I can do is recommend the prosecution," he said. "I can't initiate prosecution." And he's acknowledged the pardon theory has probably never been tested legally, and that it's going to be a question for the courts. Craig, the waiver by opening statement argument is exactly the Lois Lerner theory from 2013. Rand Paul was very vocal during those terms as well for a number of reasons. She read a statement that took the Fifth. The House held her in contempt, and the Justice Department declined to prosecute. It's a little bit different now. Paul is running the same play, different people running the Justice Department, obviously. Does he know how it ended last time? Because it sounds like, we're trying the same thing just with a bunch of different people. Although in 2013, you had a different person running the Department of Justice.
Yeah, let me ask this. You can take the Fifth Amendment is in the Constitution, right?
Well, it's an amendment to the Constitution, but yes.
And so can't you say, well, question 1, I'm going to answer your question. Question 2, I'm going to take the Fifth. Question 3, I'm going to answer. Question 4, can you do that?
Well,
is it all or nothing?
There are people on both sides that will make that argument. The argument that Paul is making is that he made a summary statement that summarized things that were going to be asked. And because he did that, then you can't give an answer and then lay on the Fifth Amendment. Now,
I didn't hear Fauci's opening remarks.
Yeah, so Josh Hawley asked, what's the color of your tie? What's the color of the carpet in front of you? Essentially making light of the entire situation. I believe those are not relative to the topic at hand, so those could have been answered and were not addressed in his opening statement. I could be wrong on that, and I'm happy to take the criticism if I am. However, Paul's argument is that because you summarized your essentially argument and how you would answer these things, you can't then turn around and take the Fifth Amendment.
And this is should it be settled in court before this? I mean, because there's going to be speculation. It will get zero news coverage. Yeah. It'll get maybe 5 minutes, and that's it. But isn't this something that needs to be finally ruled on by the Supreme Court?
Well, it's not going to hurt to have it taken up. But I will also say the end game is that if you find that out, you all think, everyone here thinks that these, and you and I think this too, these congressional hearings are a joke now. They're all going to be a joke. If you find out that you can't make an opening statement and that you want to take the Fifth because, people are having charges brought against them for things that they testify for, I don't know, just tell the truth when you go in there. But if that's the way that it is, nobody's going to answer any questions before a congressional hearing.
And you got to think, when you get a full pardon and you cannot get in trouble, I've asked you questions about transactional immunity, full immunity,
Yep.
blanket immunity. They use the term blanket immunity under there. You know, from what you've told me and what I've read, you can say anything and they can't get you in trouble. And the pardon is everything backwards.
Backwards, not forwards, though. So as long as you don't lie,
right, back to 2014,
but he's not going to say
over.
anything that's going to denigrate his reputation and legacy.
Well, it's already trashed.
Well, I understand that, but he's not going to say, "Yeah, I was wrong."
His diary trashed his reputation.
His reputation is more important than knowing that he could be criminally prosecuted. That man has an ego the size of Montana.
Oh, sure.
And as do a lot of people who are in powerful positions. And you want people to have,
That's
egos
how you
that are in
get
those
there.
positions.
You got to have a massive ego.
But he's
to be a
not going to
senator.
let his legacy be ruined just because he could face criminal prosecution. He's
Yeah,
not going to simply say, "I was wrong."
I don't know how
That would end it all. Had he just said that the other day, this would be over.
Right.
And they wouldn't be criminally prosecuting him, but his reputation
But
would be
he'll
forever
never
ruined so much.
he won't spend a day in jail.
Oh gosh,
Because
no.
they'll say he's 85 years old. He doesn't.
He's
go
a well-meaning elderly man.
Yeah. So
heard that before.
is it pointless? No, because you're getting the facts out. That diary, that's the atomic bomb of this whole coronavirus COVID thing. Is that diary? He admitted that everything he told us,
Was
the
baloney.
100 interviews, 200 interviews, he said everything he said was wrong.
Yep.
He pushed the 6-foot rule. He pushed the mask. He pushed double mask. He said even triple masks. I mean, knowing that there was no scientific backing, and I'll say it again, like I've said 50 times: if you can't trust the scientist, how can you trust the science?
Yeah, totally agree.
Trust the science was the word.
Yep. A lot of heavy stuff today. Let's get into some sports real quickly before we go anywhere else and kind of update where things are right now.
Okay, let's go.
So last night we talked to you about what has happened in the state of Colorado. What we need to understand is that today in Georgia, in a case called Godfrey versus NCAA, completely different state. This isn't the Tennessee. This isn't Ohio. This isn't Colorado. Completely different state. Darren Heitner is writing, the court deliberately seemed to be making an effort to create a coherent national body of interim relief on this eligibility issue. There is no split among courts across the country now. Judges from New Jersey to Colorado and many in between have all ruled for the players in these matters. Any resulting chaos is due to the NCAA refusing to read the writing on the wall. No more cases need to be filed at the NCAA or to merely provide the class of 2022 one more year of eligibility, but it won't, and lawsuits will continue to be filed. We told you last night that Charlotte Sweeney, the federal district judge out of Colorado, certified a class-wide injunction. Then she allowing fifth-year seniors that started in 2022 to get essentially one more year. But then she clarified it on Sunday, essentially saying, but I'm not changing any NCAA rules. The other judges that have been ruling on this differ on that. They're essentially saying, no, these guys have protections that wouldn't force them to go back to their own school without having to have entered into the portal and things like that. Denzel Aberdeen, very famously, entered the portal and went, chose Florida, even though he had no eligibility. Yeah. A lot of people are saying that he may have been the only one who did something right when it comes to that. A lot of these guys now, they don't have roster spots at the schools they want to go to. Michigan State has a full roster, I think, which would, keep Jackson Kohler from playing. But I think that's where we kind of are right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen. We know there's going to be an expedited appeal. All that being said, from the way everybody is playing this, including Will Stein for Kentucky football and Mark Pope, that we essentially have a 1 week portal.
Right, that's what I say. Lack of a better word, portal.
There's really not another way to put it. And what we believe will happen is that a lot of these schools will make offers to these kids and they will come in, but there is no guarantee that these kids are going to be able to play the entire season. So that's something these schools are going to have to consider. And remember, if Kentucky pays somebody, depending upon what the contract says,
Yeah.
but if they say, hey, we're going to pay you to play at Kentucky, and then all of a sudden a judge comes in and says, no, you're not eligible, or the Court of Appeals or whatever, you're not eligible to play, there's going to be an argument that, hey, you all took that risk in signing me
Well,
to do that, or I could have played in Europe or something else.
Wouldn't a player's agent, lawyer, wouldn't they put a clause in there that says, hey, depending on the NCAA ruling, we're signing for this amount and we're paid whether we can play or not?
100%.
If the school agrees to that, then the kid's going to be paid.
And these kids are not going to agree to come to your school without those protections in there.
Correct.
So let's say, using round numbers, let's say you offer Jackson Kohler $1 million to come to the University of Kentucky, and all of a sudden a Court of Appeals judge in, Denver rules that, he's not eligible to play for the University of Kentucky. You already got mad. I mean, the fans got furious with the idea that, Jaden Quayton played essentially 4 games and made a couple $1 million. Will they be understanding in this situation, or are they going to revolt on that action as well?
We don't know till we get there. I mean, they'll revolt because that's just the way it is. These 18 or 22-year-old kids are making more in 1 year than they'll make probably in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So, but one before you move on.
Yep.
Did you see where the Tennessee player that started a lot of this has sued again?
Yep.
This time he's wanting to sue for $4 million that he could have got in his 5th year. And according to, I guess you tell me if this is true, if that's true, then he could earn $12 million because they tripled the damages automatically.
If that's what he's sued under. Now the reality is that he's not going to win that. This same guy has sued multiple times. He's asked for eligibility twice. This time he's not asking for eligibility.
Right.
And he's asking just to be paid for the money that he could have gotten had he gotten eligibility.
Right.
The first time.
And lawyers just keep doing it. He keep throwing it out there.
Right.
Again and again until he finally wins and
if you can certify a class, attorneys are going to make money that they're happy to argue whatever.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where it stands right now. Kentucky Sports Radio confirms the staff at the University of Kentucky has been in contact with your favorite, Keyshawn Hall.
Yep.
6'7" forward out of Cleveland who averaged 19.3 points and 7.1 rebounds at Auburn last season on 45, 38, and 86% shooting splits. So 45% from the field, and he shoots 86% from the free throw line.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good.
He's just one of a couple. He went for 10 against us, 10 and 9 rebounds and 7 assists in Auburn's win over the Cats in February. That one really hurt. But John Rothstein reports that St. John's, Indiana, Kansas, Gonzaga, SMU, LSU, because LSU has to find 5 guys to play, Providence, and UCF are all in on him too. Jackson Kohler, the Michigan State forward, 12.5 and 8.9 rebounds, third best rebounder in the Big Ten, shooting 38.9% from 3, has Kentucky, Kansas, and BYU. I understand it's Kentucky and BYU.
Mm-hmm.
Their return to East Lansing, still possible as well. And Mark Mitchell is in the portal and available, though we'd note again that nobody has independently reported Kentucky is pursuing him. One name off the board, and one that is worth mentioning. Purdue All-American guard Braden Smith has decided not to come back to college.
Yeah. I guess he's got enough money from last year.
I guess he did. Craig, he'll play somewhere. Or become a doctor or something. Craig, 5 days, 1 scholarship, and 8 other programs chasing the same dudes that Kentucky wants. Pope said he'd go to battle with this group in a second. At what point does holding that spot stop being patience and start being a scholarship you just didn't use at some point?
At the end, when the season starts, I guess, when you can't do this no more, because you got to go after him. You always got to better your team. Whether you're successful or not, at least you got to try. Pope's issue is he's missed, or as the fans say, whiff. Yeah, he's whiffed on so many players that it's hurting his recruiting reputation. I don't know if it's true because I just don't know if that's true or not, but I know the fans will get upset because you're looking at adding between 17 and 20 points a game, a 20-point, 17-point player to your rotation. That's strong. That's
leadership
really strong.
position.
Yeah. and that's SEC,
Yeah, the
points,
SEC experience, yeah.
not some NCAA level 3 kind of player that doesn't really face any kind of real defense. So these are good players, but I've learned early on with Ryan Stokes that I got all hyped up on Ryan Stokes and all that, but now I've learned don't get hyped up, just ride the middle. If it happens, it happens. If it don't, we're just going to go on and play anyway.
Let me throw this out there to you because I know you're big on Keyshawn Hall.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna give you Jackson Kohler, what he did at Michigan on March 8th, 2026. The man put up 29 points against Michigan at Chrysler Arena. That's pretty damn impressive.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, they've all got great games,
but that was the national champion.
Yeah,
at their home.
Yeah,
and the man scored 29 points.
And yeah, he did good. Why didn't he get drafted? If he put up 29 points in the national championship game, why didn't the NBA?
I don't disagree.
I mean, that he didn't get hit in the second round, and then he didn't sign with anybody. You know how free agents will do.
Yeah.
And just say, don't draft me at all because I want to pick the team I want to play for. We didn't get any of that, and I'll take any of them.
I know you will.
I mean, anything that'll better our team, I'll take them. I just happen to like Hall a little bit more. I think he'll bring more to the team, but I don't care. Just get one of them, and I'll be happy. If we don't get one of them, I'll still be happy.
I will tell you all this for any of you all who been keeping up with the side story of Bricks and Minifig. The interesting thing about Jackson Kohler is he is originally from American Fork, Utah, which was involved deeply in that story. Craig, you'll have to.
You're getting in the weeds on that one.
I know. I'll have to school you about what happened with Bricks and Minifig this summer. It's kind of wild.
I don't know who Bricks and Minifig is.
Yeah, Legos, buddy. It's a lot of money these days.
Okay.
Legos. Who knew?
All right, if you say so.
Anything before we get out of here tonight?
Nope.
Well,
tomorrow
we are going to have Jeff Farmer, police officer here, about to be the deputy chief in Lawrenceburg. He is going to join us to discuss flock cameras. And we will obviously update you with any news that comes along, but we're going to spend a majority of our time debating and talking about flock cameras. Craig and I'll be working on what we're going to talk about specifically tomorrow, but join us at 5:00 tomorrow. It will be a lively discussion about one of the biggest topics that all local municipalities and states are taking up right now. So you'll be able to have.
And remember, Los Angeles pulled their flock.
Yeah, they did.
They haven't eliminated it, but Los Angeles and another big city, they're no longer a flock city or an
Seattle.
Or an ALPR city.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest county. That's the biggest county in the United States, and we've got them here in Frankfort. They're all over Kentucky, and pros and cons. I'm sure Kyle's seen them. I've seen plenty of stories of how they rescued somebody, a little child, or caught a bank robber in minutes from putting their license plate on the car. But people are so paranoid about their surveillance state. But there's your surveillance state right there.
Save your
What we're looking at right now is a surveillance state. Go on Facebook and say the word canoe and see how many canoe ads pop up on your Facebook page.
You don't have to do that. Just walk around with your phone and say a word and your stuff pops up for Amazon ads and everything else.
So we're surveilled. It's just whether we trust the people that's got the information. Our license plates are out there. Any state employee, rogue state employee could put every license plate in Kentucky and every bit of information out on the dark web. It's the same thing like they do with our credit cards.
That's why you need good leadership in local cities that hire and fire those people. That's the most important thing. You and I both, you've worked in a police department and in a law enforcement office, and I've worked, as a city commissioner. So we see him. Yeah, with them. So, Craig, thank you as always. Can't do this show without you. To everyone watching and listening at home or on the road, if you're doing that, thank you for being here with us. Subscribe if you haven't. Give us a like. Share this with someone that needs to be above the noise. But until next time, we will see you guys tomorrow. Make sure that you stay informed, stay sharp, and stay above the noise. Good night, everybody. Have a great Wednesday evening. See you tomorrow at 5:00.